On the night of the 25th of June 1906, beneath the dazzling lights of Madison Square Garden's rooftop, 3 deafening gunshots rang out. Stanford White, celebrated architect, symbol of New York's high society, collapsed instantly, his blood staining the velvet floor. What had begun as the glittering premiere of Mlle. Champagne turned into a crime scene of horror, with thousands of panicked spectators fleeing in terror. The gunman was none other than Harry Thaw, husband of the beautiful Evelyn Nesbit, White's former lover. This was no ordinary murder. It was the climax of a tangled love triangle, a brilliant architect drowning in decadent excess, a young woman torn between love and power, and a wealthy heir whose obsession curdled into hatred. Love, lust, and honor converged into a storm of blood at the very heart of glamorous New York. So what led to the fatal moment when Stanford White was gunned down in the glow of his own creation? Welcome to Hollywood Shadows, where infamous crimes and hidden histories are retold with raw truth and cinematic drama. If you find this story gripping, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss the shocking tales to come. The 25th of June 1906. New York glowed with electric brilliance. In the pulse of a modern city on the rise, no one could have imagined that within hours they would witness one of the most sensational murders in American history. That evening, Harry Thaw and his wife Evelyn Nesbit dined at Café Martin, a lavish restaurant frequented by the city's elite. Fate struck when the couple unexpectedly crossed paths with Stanford White. It was more than coincidence, it was the spark that ignited years of simmering resentment and obsession in Thaw's mind. Amid the shimmering chandeliers, Evelyn's face betrayed unease. White remained calm, aloof, as if nothing connected him to the couple before him. But Thaw's eyes burned. To him, White was not just a rival, he was the man who had ruined the woman he claimed as his own. Leaving the cafe, Thaw and Evelyn made their way to Madison Square Garden, a landmark designed by White himself, now destined to become his tomb. On the rooftop theater, the premiere of Edgar Allan Wolff's Mlle. Champagne drew a packed summer crowd. No one noticed Thaw's long black overcoat, far too heavy for the sweltering heat. Only Evelyn, guided by a woman's instinct, sensed the storm about to break. At 11 p.m., as the performance neared its end, Stanford White entered with confident stride and took his reserved seat. For the audience, it was routine. For Thaw, it was destiny. Throughout the finale, Thaw rose and sat, his hand brushing the inside of his coat where a revolver lay hidden. Evelyn trembled, knowing catastrophe loomed. Then, as the orchestra struck up the jaunty refrain, "I could love a million girls," Thaw snapped. He strode toward White, drew his gun, and at point-blank range fired 3 times. 2 bullets tore through White's face. The third struck his shoulder. Blood erupted, and White fell lifeless in his chair. For an instant, the audience laughed, thinking it a stage trick. But as crimson spread across the tablecloth and White slumped motionless, laughter turned to screams. Pandemonium erupted. Spectators trampled seats in their rush to escape. In the chaos, Thaw brandished his revolver and shouted, "I did it because he ruined my wife. He will never touch her again." Some witnesses recalled him crying, "He destroyed my life." However phrased, the message was unmistakable. This was a public execution in the name of love and honor. Police seized Thaw on the spot. Evelyn fled into the night, later confessing, "I was utterly paralyzed, body and soul. I moved like someone in a trance for hours afterward." Endo. That night, New York was shaken to its core, a brilliant architect slain in the very building he designed, a wealthy heir transformed into a killer before 1,000 eyes, and a young woman trapped in a scandal that would haunt her for the rest of her life. By morning, the murder dominated headlines across America. The tabloids turned the tragedy into a carnival of sensation. Within days, the entire nation knew the lurid details, from Thaw's black coat to White's reserved table. A week later, Thomas Edison rushed a short film, The Rooftop Murder, into Nickelodeon theaters, bringing the crime to the silver screen while the blood was still fresh. For the first time in history, a killing had been reenacted as entertainment. Thaw's trial became the trial of the century. Crowds besieged the courthouse, foreign correspondents swarmed New York. The press painted White as the emblem of corruption, dissecting his architecture as the product of a depraved soul. Thaw, by contrast, was hailed by some as a chivalrous husband, while prosecutors branded him insane. The deepest wounds, however, were inflicted on Evelyn. In a packed courtroom of men, she was forced to recount in painful detail her private past with White, what one journalist called a public dissection of a woman's soul. A corps of female reporters, dubbed the Sob Sisters, dramatized her agony for readers, making the spectacle even more lurid. Ultimately, Thaw's family wealth secured a verdict of temporary insanity. He was confined to an asylum rather than prison. The judgment divided the public. Some saw justice served. Others saw proof that money and privilege triumphed over law. The case left an indelible scar. It revealed the bloodlust of the press, the fragility of justice before public opinion, and the vulnerability of private lives to a media machine hungry for scandal. Stanford White, born in 1853, rose from a cultured family to become one of America's foremost architects. As a partner of McKim, Mead, and White, he helped shape New York with landmarks like the New York Public Library, Columbia University, and Madison Square Garden itself. Yet behind his genius lay a life of indulgence, revelry, and predatory liaisons that made him both celebrated and despised. Harry Thaw, born in 1871 to a wealthy Pittsburgh family, grew up spoiled and volatile. His erratic behavior and fits of rage hinted at mental illness. Money bought him pleasures, but in love he craved control and honor above all. Evelyn Nesbit, born in 1884, rose from poverty to fame as a model and actress. Dubbed America's first it girl, she embodied youthful beauty and glamour. But that beauty made her prey for powerful men like White, and later Thaw. Bound together by ambition, obsession, and lust, the three spiraled toward the bloody climax on that rooftop stage. The death of Stanford White closed the chapter of a brilliant yet decadent life, while opening a tragic saga for Thaw, Evelyn, and American society itself. This was not merely a jealous husband's crime, but a brutal collision of love, lust, honor, and moral decay. White, the visionary architect, raised monuments that still grace New York, yet built a private life that invited vengeance. Thaw, the privileged heir, turned love into obsession and honor into a motive for murder. Evelyn, America's darling, became a symbol of downfall, dragged from stardom into a courtroom spectacle and a lifetime of scrutiny. But beyond the individuals, the case mirrored an era, a society enthralled by scandal, where tabloids reigned, and justice itself bent beneath the weight of publicity and wealth. It asked the eternal question: did justice prevail in a trial staged for the masses, or was it just another performance under blinding lights? Over a century later, the case still echoes as a bitter lesson. Love can redeem, but when twisted by desire and power, it becomes the fuse of destruction. And so the questions remain. Was Harry Thaw a madman or a gallant husband? Was Evelyn Nesbit a victim or an opportunist? Or were they all tragic products of a society that worshipped glamour while rotting beneath? If you have your own thoughts on this case, share them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to join us for more shocking and mysterious stories. Every comment you leave fuels our mission to uncover and retell the dark dramas that changed history.